All right, and welcome to Hannity. And as we begin tonight, we have breaking news. A former high-ranking FBI special agent, his name is Charles McGonigal. Now, he just pled guilty to violations of U.S. sanctions and laundering payments from a Russian oligarch. Wow, here's the important part to note, and that is Charles wasn't just any rank-and-file member of the FBI. No, senior agent had a prominent role in forming, ironically, Operation Crossfire Hurricane and perpetuating the Russia hoax, and the hoax that John Durham said that never should have existed. Let me put it simply. The guy that was out there accusing President Trump of colluding with Russia, he was the one that was actually colluding with Russia. Don't worry. He will be the next hero guest on MSDNC and Fake News CNN. But McGonigal, well, he wasn't alone. And we begin tonight with this, a simple truth and a sad reality. The United States of America today does not have equal justice under the law. It does not have equal application of our laws. We have a dual justice system. We do have a DOJ that has been politicized, and it has been weaponized in ways this country's never seen before. Some examples. Let's look at Hillary Clinton and her 2016 campaign, paying an ex-foreign spy, Christopher Steele, a ton of money to put together campaign op research that was filled with Russian disinformation against then-candidate Donald J. Trump. That op research, known as the Hillary Clinton Dirty Russian Dossier, that was farmed out to every media outlet, government institution in America as, quote, real intelligence, all in a phony effort to first shape the 20 election results, and then afterwards, when they lost, then to use those to question the results after Donald Trump won. In America today, if you are a prominent Democrat, your last name's Clinton or Biden, it's totally okay to deny election results. You can even use Russian disinformation to do it. No problem at all. But if your last name is Trump, if you're a Republican, a conservative, you'll be indicted for jaywalking, likely facing 10 years in jail. Late last night, more charges for Donald Trump and 18, quote, co-conspirators out of Atlanta for challenging the results of the 2020 election. Now, with these additional 13 charges, well, Donald Trump faces a whopping 712 years, 6 months in prison, more than, the most convicted killers on the streets that we don't even arrest, or if we do arrest them, we let them back out in minutes. Anyway, it's not just enough to beat Donald Trump politically, not in today's America, not in Joe Biden's America, not with Joe Biden's DOJ. No, today's Democrats in Biden's weaponized justice system, they now want Biden's chief political rival to be dead, to die in prison for challenging an election or having views they don't agree with. And right on cue and lacking any and all self-awareness, and you really can't make this up, one of America's most prominent 2016 election deniers, the person that bought and paid for the dirty Russian dossier, Hillary Clinton herself, heads on over to very friendly territory over at MSDNC. Why? To celebrate Donald Trump's indictment and scold any and all Americans who dare to question the legitimacy of an election. And by the way, you're about to see hypocrisy and dishonesty in a way that's almost surreal. It's poetic. Take a look.
So this attack on the elections was the most important step in a long line of efforts undertaken to undermine our trust and our belief in a functioning democracy and our commitment to one person, one vote.
You can run the best campaign, you can even become the nominee, and you can have the election stolen from you.
One of the things that we've learned by living it in these past few years is that democracy needs the trust of the people.
That's right.
That the system of democracy at its heart is the idea that the people get to decide how we are governed. Russia, the Russian government, Russian military, Russian intelligence interfered in the U.S. presidential election in 2016 to try to help Donald Trump win that election.
But I don't know that anybody should be satisfied. This is a terrible moment for our country to have a former president accused of these terribly important crimes.
I believe he knows he's an illegitimate president.
If bad actors tell us falsely that every election is stolen and that the only way an election is trustworthy as if they come out on top of it, then something, it tells you something not just about that person or that moment. It maybe wounds us as a democracy and in a way that is hard to repair.
Russia was interfering in the election, and they weren't doing it on their own, and he was in on it.
You know, the truth matters.
Right. So Hillary Clinton, she's the one that was saying the election was illegitimate when she lost. She paid for the Russian dirty dossier, and, you know, outlets like MSDNC and fake news CNN and the New York Times and Washington Post, they peddled those lies and conspiracy theories for years, and they were dead wrong. Truth matters. Not to Hillary, not to the media mob, none of them. They tried to discredit an election by spreading lies and conspiracy theories about Donald Trump and Russia. They're still pushing them 6 years, 7 years later. The Durham probe found that Crossfire Hurricane was never, ever justified. Russia did not hack the 2016 election. Donald Trump was not an illegitimate president. There wasn't a single thing that he found in the Russian disinformation dossier Hillary paid for that was true, and she and her allies never faced any consequences for spreading actual Russian disinformation that they paid for. Hillary also never faced any legal consequences for mishandling top secret classified material stored on her unsecure private servers that many enemy countries were able to hack into, like China. Her office, her home, was never raided. Neither was Joe Biden's. They had top secret classified information everywhere. She never faced charges for obstructing justice after deleting 33,000 subpoenaed emails, wiping servers, hard drives clean with bleach bit, and smashing phones and Blackberries with hammers. She also never faced any consequences from the Uranium One scandal. Remember, that was the scandal that resulted in Russia, one of our biggest geopolitical foes, getting 20% of our uranium, critical to the enrichment of our nuclear weapons, and we don't have enough of it. Hillary also never faced consequences for Benghazi, all those sketchy foreign business payments to the Clinton Foundation. So I go back to my point. If you are a prominent Democrat, you can pretty much do whatever you want. You will get away with it. Another example, the family of a certain Democratic senator turned vice president and raking in tens of millions of dollars in cash from corrupt countries, our top geopolitical foes, and is often the case around the globe: Russia, China, Romania, Kazakhstan, Ukraine. This family syndicate, led by Hunter Biden, at the time a drug addict, had absolutely no experience at all with these countries, or in the case of Ukraine and China, in the energy sphere. But he's getting paid a fortune, millions and millions of dollars, thanks to Pops. They had but one thing to sell, and that was the Biden brand, the Joe Biden brand. Access to a prominent senator turned vice president, now your President Joe Biden. They set up phone calls, they had meetings, they had dinners at the beautiful Cafe Milano with the big guy, and even reportedly got Pops to alter U.S. policy for a price. At least one trusted source accused Joe Biden and his son of accepting a multi-million-dollar bribe, and tonight a mountain of other evidence suggesting Joe got paid in a multitude of other ways. A former Biden business partner told the New York Post that multiple Biden family members, they paid for pretty much all of Joe's living expenses. Quote, it's vacations, it's cell phones, it's money to pay taxes. This is Joe Biden's brothers, sisters, children, grandchildren taking care of him. They were the ones being paid a fortune, cashing in on Joe Biden's name and position. And according to a 2018 text from Hunter Biden, he paid for Dad's bills for more than a decade, including credit card charges from Hunter's Wells Fargo account. So why was Hunter paying Pop's bills? Why were members of his family, 9 members, according to James Comer, why were they getting all this money from all these foreign countries? What did Hunter Biden, what did the grandchildren do to receive these massive sums of money? All the while, Hunter was, quote, neglecting, well, to pay taxes on millions of dollars in income. It's almost as if they were operating as one illicit organization with the big guy at the top. And then, of course, he had his friends slow walking the investigation, letting the statute of limitations run out. How great a gig is this? This is typically what you see in a real RICO or racketeering case. But President Biden, he's not been charged with any crimes. Welcome to Joe Biden's America. In fact, as far as we know, he's not even under investigation. Instead, it's former President Trump, 18 others, including his own lawyers. No attorney-client privilege. That has been waived. We'll get rid of that. We'll use the crime fraud exception. Charged with racketeering. They're not accused of accepting foreign bribes in exchange for policy decisions like that 1023 form says. Like Joe Biden, they're not accused of paying an ex-foreign spy to spread Russian disinformation and interfere with an election like Hillary Clinton. Instead, they're accused of challenging election results, something Democrats have been doing since Al Gore tried to reverse the 2000 election in Florida by finding votes with only selective recounts, only in Democratic districts. That's what they tried. For left-wing prosecutors charging Donald Trump, it isn't about the truth. It's not about democracy. It's about power. It's about vengeance. And it's about blocking Donald Trump from ever going before the voters to even become president, give them the option of him becoming president again. Democrats have now bludgeoned our justice system, using it as a political weapon against Republicans and a political shield for their fellow Democrats. It's now more obvious than ever. And it's probably why Hunter and his lawyers think they believe they can reinstate the sweetheart plea deal. Make no mistake, America's unequal, abusively biased justice system is now ripping this country to shreds. Coming up, an early victim of Jack Smith and the weaponized system of justice, that's former Virginia Governor Bob McDonnell. Wait till you hear his story. Hey, Sean Hannity here. Hey, click here to subscribe to Fox News YouTube page and catch our hottest interviews and most compelling analysis. You will not get it anywhere else.